Hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Products and Services here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to present Dion McCormick, no relation, who's our lead solutions engineer, along with Sarah Mitchell, who's in charge of our documentation. Today, Dion is going to be going over some more, I think, drag and drop file upload, if I remember correctly.
That is correct.
Excellent. And he's also here to take your questions. So go ahead and type those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So let's get started. Dion, I hear that you're there, so I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter.
Dynamite. And you are technically also the producer of this event, too.
Producer.
So,
there you go.
Producer and star. You're like Lin-Manuel, for Hamilton. You kind of do it all.
That would be pretty cool.
Wrote it, directed it, acted in it, collected the big checks. Man, way to go. Did you hear he picked up $75 million from Disney for the film? It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Score. Amazing. Good for him. Excellent stuff. Excellent, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to have you with us. And as Dave so rightfully mentioned, we're here for you. So actually, the two presentations or little demos I want to do today were requested through guides at alphasoftware.com. One is a follow-on to our drag and drop capability, a newer feature that was added right after it that enhanced it, but also another one that was just kind of a general, how do I do something kind of question. So if you can, we always appreciate you sending requests into guides at alphasoftware.com. It allows us to kind of prepare, get a little better, make sure we don't screw it up too badly ahead of time. And so it's the way to go there. But as he mentioned, we are also here for your questions now. So you can go to the GoToWebinar control panel questions area and put in your questions, and we will do our best to answer. If we can't answer it, we'll follow up and make sure things get taken care of. Also, I'd like to introduce on the line too is Sarah, who is our esteemed manager of all many things. I mean, wears so many hats inside Alpha, primarily really taking and making sure we have the right documentation, that information is coming from our developers into the ecosystem, and really appreciate all the efforts she makes. It really makes my life a lot easier, and I use the documentation every single day. So it's a big impact for me, and I'm sure for you. So with that, Dave, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit, and that is to do a follow-up from a presentation from a couple weeks ago. Recently, the team added the ability to do drag and drop file upload, which is really nice. And actually, it's already been implemented on a couple projects, very stable, working really awesome. It's smooth and flexible and just is fabulous. Basically, as I showed in the previous demo, all you have to do is put a control on there, connect it to your connection string, your storage connection string, to put it either on S3, or you can also put it on your file server, whichever way you want to go there, and then it does the rest. It is really nice, very straightforward to put that together. But one of the questions came out, and this was actually a follow-on, was like, well, okay, I dragged my files, they're up on wherever the file server is, but now I need to do some post manipulation. And the most common is I've got to take these files and put the names and information into a database or notify someone or do something like that. And actually that was missing from the original version, but it has since been corrected and it is enhanced. So now I'll show you today where you're going to be able to essentially do post-processing of the files that are uploaded. So I'm going to go through that demonstration. Then I have another demonstration in terms of using arguments with UXs to kind of pass information back and forth, which is really handy, and kind of, especially if you're moving from the grid world where you have like row expanders and linked grids, you're starting to move into the UX world, kind of linking UXs. This is really, should hopefully give you some pointers on how to do that. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and jump into our other side. But I do have one last thing before I do it. Do realize now our developer show is now available. The DevCon has been announced. You hopefully will have received the information about it. If you haven't, then send us a message at guides@alphasoftware.com and we'll get that out to you as soon as possible. But we are taking registration for that. It's just an incredible price, and really highly recommend folks joining us. It's going to be an impactful. There's not only a lot of stuff already in the product that we're going to be covering in the training and other aspects that are part of that conference, But beyond that, there's going to be a lot of new stuff coming down the road that the team's working on that's getting very close to being released. And we'll be diving into those at very deep levels. So we'll always have the documentation, examples, etc. But in DevCon, we're really going to pick and choose some of these more powerful capabilities that are coming out and really driving into them to make sure that our developer community can quickly take advantage of these powerful capabilities and enhance their existing applications or create whole new applications based on that capability. So go definitely check that out. Let us know if you haven't received that invitation. We'll get it out to you as soon as possible. So I'm going to dive into my development environment real quick, and I'm going to go back into my drag and drop. So this is the control or the UX I put together. So there's a new control. It's called the drag and drop file upload. It is, I believe, it's no, I think it's in other controls. Let's see where that is. Yep. So there's a new control that was added called the drag and drop area. And you add that to your file system, or rather to your UX, and that will allow you to do a drag and drop. So let me go ahead and just show you this in operation. So I added that, set a few settings, and now you'll see over here, I have this drag one or more files to upload. So I can click here, and then I can select a file and click upload. You know, let's say I'm going to do this. And in a moment, you'll see it's going to give me a little progress. This is going up to S3, and voila, file upload has been completed. So it's now up on the S3 there. And you can also drag and drop onto this area. It doesn't work in working preview, but if I open this up in a browser and drag it on, it just works. It's so nice. And especially if people are very file intensive, you're going to find that this is going to make your users are going to love it, because they can literally copy stuff right off their desktop right into your system, and it just handles it. Now, that said, the question is, okay, I did that drag and drop. The files are where I need them to be, say up on my server or on my S3 instance, but I want to get the information of what was uploaded, and also want to make sure everything got uploaded correctly. Well, that's where the magic comes in. I'm going to go ahead and click on my drag and drop file upload control. I'm going to go over here to the file upload properties and select that. So this opens up my configuration here. You'll notice my current target is S3, and I use that all the time. It just fast, works really solid, awesome. Now I've told it to use a certain connection string, so I've already set up that connection string, but there's ways to make this dynamic as you want to. And before, if you watch the previous, we set up display progress, etc. Now, the key thing and the new capability is down here at the bottom. We've always had the ability in JavaScript is on upload complete. What will happen is this will trigger for each individual file or all files. So if you want to do things on the client side, you can trap when either each file is uploaded or when they're all done and take action. It provides you data there. But this is a Xbasic function which will call back to the server with the information that's been uploaded that allows you to analyze that data and then take action accordingly. So let's go ahead and look at this. So I'm going to go to after upload complete. Going to click here, and currently I don't have a function, so I'm going to call it process files. If I can, there we go. Okay, now the nice thing about it is that it will actually give you some sample code. So I'm going to click here for show function prototype. This opens up my sample code. I'm going to go ahead and copy this to the clipboard. And now I'm going to open up my Xbasic function declarations, which is equivalent to clicking over here, but I can do it just right here and paste that right in here. So now, and again, it will show up here, I've actually created a function on the server that after the upload is done on the client's going to call up to the server and run this function and give it some information. We're going to look at that in a moment there. So I'm done. So now what will happen is when the drag and drop is done, like I copied 3 files on there, boom, 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 then after it's done, it's going to run over, it's going to find this function, and it's going to run it. So there's some information here on how it works. The nice thing about it, and this is so cool, it gives you a lot of really good data. It gives you the name of each file. And again, this works it gives you an array of information if you have more than one file. It gives you the size, the type, which is really cool. So you can tell like if this was a PDF or a JPEG or a PNG, etc. It also tells you whether it was completed properly or aborted, because it may be a situation that halfway through they cancel some of these files where you don't want to actually take action. So you can actually check to make sure that the file has been properly uploaded to wherever you want it to go before you target that. And then it also gives you the target name, which is the name on the S3. And this could be like different from the file name that was uploaded. Notice it's giving us the name of the file. This is the target name, because when you put it on S3 or your local file system, you may be putting it into a subdirectory kind of concept. So with S3, you can create kind of virtual folders where you can say, okay, I'm going to upload it to my S3 bucket, but I'm going to put it into the files folder. So I have maybe a files folder or a work orders or whatever. You may have come up a way in terms of saying when these files are uploaded, I want them to be put into a certain location on S3 in a certain bucket at certain. So this gives you that full target name, and that's very important for to have it, because later on when you want to do a download, you need that full target name, not just the name of the file, unless you want to recreate where it's located at. So this just is a saver. And then this also tells you which server the file was uploaded to from that standpoint. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just uncomment this information right here. And this is just some sample that shows you, and then we're going to walk through this real quick and show you what's going on there. And I'm not going to add any code yet. I'm just going to uncomment, and we're going to look at this, how it operates. So again, once the file upload is done, it triggers here, and then we can start getting the information we need. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Oh, wait. Oh, there we are. Might actually have to keep that comment in right there. Okay. So we'll go ahead and do a working preview. And I'm going to click here, and let's go ahead and upload 2 files. So I'm selecting 2 files, and I'm clicking open, which is equivalent to dragging 2 files onto the item there. So notice it's going to take a moment as it uploads those. Should be a little faster, but hey, it's a webinar. Okay, now watch what happens. In our case, the file upload's done, and then this triggered an Xbasic callback or an Ajax callback and triggered, and we're inside of our process files. And you'll see that now we can go ahead and start running this code. So I'm going to step through, and for people who are new to this, this is our Xbasic debugger. It allows you to put a notice and walk through its classic debugging capabilities and see what's going on. So I'm going to click step and see, and then I'm going to take this E file array. So E is just like this big chunk of information that comes back from the client. And you'll see it often in any X or Ajax callback, because all the information about what's on the client, what the field names are, what the values are, et cetera, is all inside there. But it created a special thing called E underscore file array. So I'm going to step, and then let's go ahead and first look at E file array. Okay, so what the system did is that it created some JSON, and it's showing that it basically took that JSON and each of the files. So you'll notice this is file number 0. It's JavaScript, so it's 0. The name of it's called ECM background. This is the size, 4.1 megs, the type, etc. And then over here, there's file number 1. So this is JSON. And so what I'm going to do is I'm using what's called the JSON parse function, which is built into Alpha, to turn this into something more usable. So it turned it into a pointer. So I'm going to double click on this P right here, and you're going to see, check this out. It's identified that this has 2 items. So I'm going to hit the plus here, and you'll see here's item number 1. This is the first file. Here's item number 2. And as you can see, it's basically created a structure so it's easy for me programmatically. I don't have to scan this with like a string scanner or something like that. I can just say, okay, for each one, give me the first name. So for the first item in the array, the first file that it was uploaded, give me the name, and that's the name of it. If I go right here and just say to the second item and change that, you'll see, this is the second one here. So it puts it into what's called a pointer array, and the pointer array allows you to quickly iterate through it. So now what I can do is the following. I'm going to go ahead and halt here, and I'll show you a classic way I would go ahead and handle this. So I'll go in here. Now I've got that pointer array. I'm going to do the following code. I'm going to say for each file item in P, next. Okay. And then I'm going to say file name is equal to file item.name. And I'll show you running this here. So we'll go ahead and click save here. Oh, missing for each. Okay. So let's go ahead and do this real quick. We'll go ahead. I'm going to do the same thing we did before. I'm going to upload 2 files because I think it's going to be interesting to do it. Go ahead and click that. Okay, we got to here. So same kind of concept where first thing it's going to do is it's going to grab that e-file array. Here's the information of what was uploaded. Now I'm going to go through a loop. And what this does is it's going to go through, as we mentioned before, P has multiple items in it, 1, 2, etc. So what we're going to do is this actually will look at P and look at the number of them and loop through them. So I don't have to know the number of files. I don't have to figure all that out. I just say, hey, loop through them and do what I need to do. Now, the cool thing it does is that it takes each of these items and each time it goes through this loop, it puts it into this thing called file item. So let's go step, and then let's say file name is this. Hold on 1 second here. This thing is there. My mouse is a little off. Wait a second. Sorry about that. So you'll notice that it entered this loop. We have 2 items, and now I'm going to click on this thing called file item. And you'll see that file item right here has essentially my first item in my pointer array. So it took this first thing and put it in there. So now I can refer to any of these data elements by just saying file item.name. And I know this is a little bit more Xbasic. There's really good examples on our documentation on how to, work with pointer and pointer arrays. But you'll see what I can do is now instead of writing, you can see the code becomes really simple. So now I can add code in here saying, okay, I'm going to create like an insert statement into my database here and insert this information into, say, a database table. I can do that right within this for next loop, and it's just going to perform this for every file that was uploaded. So it's really nice and very easy to now create these sort of post-processing. And I'm using the example of inserting it into a database, but you could do things like, send an email message. You could then you could send an email message with the target name of the item. So you could actually tell them where they can go download this file. Now it's on S3. There's so many things you can do with it. You can also run it through ImageMagick or any of these other tools that allow you to manipulate the files once they're uploaded. Or an example, maybe you're uploading a bunch of Excel files. Now you can open them up, read the data out of each Excel file, and then process it accordingly. So this addition of this ability to call the Xbasic post-processing sort of function is really nice, was added after the initial version. And as you can see, it's pretty easy. You just basically do everything you do normally, but then just give it a name of that function, and then write the function, in this case, to basically extract and run through your files and do the manipulation there. Pretty straightforward once you kind of have a feel for it, but super powerful. And in fact, we're again implementing on a number of different projects. And the classic is, okay, I'm like working on a data element and I'm going to associate some files with that data element. So what I do is I upload those files, then I go into the database and I can create a set of records into, say, a file table with the key of the original item it's supposed to be associated with in that, so that I can say, oh yeah, this item here inside the database has these files associated with. Very straightforward because you have all the information that's associated and it's in this Xbasic that you can do it from there. So that's a really nice, cool feature. Let's go ahead and open it up for any question. Excuse me there. I have to really take that out in post. But yeah, let's open up for any kind of questions and that you have on this. Again, if you're kind of like, well, how do we do the first part? We do have that in our webinar video library where we walk through step-by-step how to set this up, configure it, and go from there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. let's see what I've got here. Is it possible to drag and drop a file and grab the metadata off of the file when it uploads? Like if you're dragging an email message from Outlook or something, can you scoop out the message date and subject sender, things like that?
Well, that, Outlook is not a file you're dragging. This is file manipulation. So
All
it's
right, fair
expecting to
enough.
get a file, something along those lines.
So
Now,
maybe like an image, like a JPEG.
yeah. Well, right now you get basically you get the name and the size and the type of it, but not sure about the other metadata. I'm thinking like EXIF data, like location, date, time, and things like that.
Yep.
Um, we'd probably have to look at maybe there's a web API that you can run to like grab the data out of a image, submit an image and get the information back. Or maybe there's another way that I'm not aware of parsing images to get that data back there. But the benefit is here you'll have a hook to the image so you know where it's at, it's been uploaded. You can then post-process that image. Like another example is I'm uploading images and I want to create thumbnails. So in this loop, for each image that's uploaded, I could go ahead and run image magic, create a thumbnail, store it in there, and then now I have the original image and I have a thumbnail all ready to go. It's pretty handy.
Excellent. All right. So yeah, a couple more questions. So besides images, though, we can also do Word files, PDF files, pretty much any file
Any
type. Is
file,
that right?
yeah,
Okay.
AVI files, MP4s, it doesn't matter. Yeah,
Yep.
it's just purely a file transfer process.
Gotcha. Another question for you. Let's say you upload a file by mistake. Like you're like, oops, I shouldn't have uploaded that. Can you create functionality that could delete a file?
Absolutely. And so, that's again where you kind of want to store. There's two ways you can do this. Is one way is, and it's most often is you store like the file information into a database, which has the name of the file, the data was uploaded, all those other things there. And then you could then say, okay, let's go ahead and delete that file. Then you could run behind the scenes a command to S3 to say remove that file. Another method I've seen too is that there are Xbasic commands and built-in functionality that will allow you to read the contents of a directory on S3 or a bucket. And so in that case, you could literally not even store it anywhere, just have, give me a list of items in this bucket. And then when you click on an item, you grab that item's information and then subsequently, delete it from there. But that would all be done. And there's actually information on being in the documentation system. Hold on here. Let me go ahead and grab this real quick. Bear with me. Go to our documentation site. It's part of the storage. There's a whole set of functions that are built in around storage.
Storage
That are
functions, yeah.
Yeah, storage. I think we covered them briefly before. So there's storage connections and then here's the Xbasic functions. Yeah, so let's go ahead and grab that and put it into our window here. See how great this documentation is. Can't say enough good things about it. There we go. I'm putting this in here. So you build your connection strings, but then now you have a series of functions, for instance, list items. So you could actually say, hey, just give me a carriage return and line feed to limit a list of items in my bucket. So you don't even need to store it in a database. You could just put it up in the bucket. And then what you can do is you could use, for instance, this A5 storage delete item to then remove that item out of the bucket. So in terms of the actual question, yes, you would just do it in Xbasic is basically you would show them a list, they click on the item, and then you would run a callback to the server saying, go delete this item on AWS. Now, a couple things that are cool about this. One of the neat things about AWS and using S3 in particular is that S3 has a whole bunch of built-in functionality. So for instance, it will do file versioning. So that's kind of cool is that like if you upload a duplicate or modify a file up there, it actually creates versions and stores them for you. And that's an option you can set on your bucket policy and things like that. So you can take all these really powerful things and use them from there. But that's how I would handle it is you basically get a list of them from there or have already a list in your database, and then you just trigger the A5 storage delete item to remove that from the storage environment. And as you can see, it works for disk, meaning you could use the same set of functions, whether it's stored on like a disk on a standard application server, if it's stored up on Azure, on S3. And so therefore you can write a set of code that like in a month you go, oh, you know what, we really need more space, or I'd rather have it on S3. You don't have to end up rewriting all your code, because it basically you can use a connection string and say, now work with this place, and therefore, like let's work with S3 now, and things like A5 storage delete item is going to work fine in that scenario. It's pretty cool. It's really neat things.
Fantastic. It looks, were you, by the way, showing us something on the screen, or are we still just looking at your UX control? I just want to make sure that the picture isn't frozen.
Oh, it might have frozen. I'm looking at the documentation. Interesting.
I'm not seeing that, but maybe that's just me. Is anyone else seeing the
It could
documentation?
be. It's showing on mine. So I'm going to stop and restart.
All right. That's always a thing.
Yeah. So
again, it could just be me. I just want to make sure it isn't everyone.
It's fine.
It's fine?
Updating on my end, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then it's
Dion's
just
scrolling the web page right now.
It's not the first time I've been slow. So
is the coronavirus starting to kick in there, Dave? Is starting to? I'm getting a little fuzzy here.
Oh, that's
I
bad.
sound like I have it. Jeez.
Yeah, I know it does. Yeah. So let me see. So during that delete thing, if you wanted to, you could also put in confirmation messages to make sure that you don't delete the wrong file by mistake.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And that's always a really good idea, because I think once you delete, you delete.
Yeah.
Now, the other option too is you can create a subfolder that's like a delete folder and then move it and say, yeah, it's been deleted, but then you can always recover it later. So there's a lot of really, you could really get fancy on it in terms of how you handle it.
Very cool. The other question we had was, okay, so you had this little script and you said like file name equals file, and that would be your for each, but so one of the questions was, how could I then show the user the list of uploaded files? Maybe, I guess there'd be two ways. You could, as you're capturing them, add them to a database. But as you pointed out, you could also just go back to S3 and ask S3 what files are.
Yeah, and if I want to show them what they just uploaded, I'll show you that first. Yeah. So you'll notice I have a field here called results. So I'm going to go back to my Xbasic function, and I'm going to create a...
Dan, while you're doing that, I'm going to drop out of this webinar and reconnect so I can see your screen. All right.
Makes it easier.
I'm not going to end it for everyone.
I know. You got it.
All right. I'm just leaving the webinar.
Crickets. Okay.
All right.
So I'm going to just make a results thing here, and I'm just going to go results is equal to results plus file name plus CRLF, which is carriage return line feed. So basically, I'm just creating a results here. And actually, let's make this a little more interesting. Let's say dim results are files that have been uploaded plus CRLF. So I'll just make a little opening message, and then I'll add each of those. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I wonder if this will work this way. Let's see. I'll go _underscore set dot let's see, results dot value is equal to results. We'll see if this works. Sometimes in some of these codes it should work because it's just an Xbasic callback. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll save this. And what it should do here. What's that again? I'm sorry.
I have low expectations that will work.
I think this one's pretty well behaved because it's just doing a standard callback versus one of these like buried Xbasic things. So let's go ahead and give that a try. Oops, I should pick smaller files. That should be a little faster. So now it's going to trigger that callback, and there we go. Yeah, it did work. So as you can see, I can immediately give the person some immediate feedback here to show them what has just been uploaded, saying, hey, success, these are the files that have been uploaded. I could also put it into a database and then have a list control connected to that database and refresh the list control or a grid control. So there's a number of different ways in which you can kind of do this sort of confirmation message process. The simplest way I did in this case, just to reiterate, is that I had just a label control on here, and that label control is a data control, so I can set its value. And then what I do is in my actual Xbasic callback, I build my sort of what I want to spit out. And then in this right here, looks a little arcane, but it's e._set result. But most importantly, I say value. If you don't say value, it won't actually show up. And what this does, this little line right here, basically Alpha takes that line and says, oh, okay, I'm going to create a set of JavaScript that will update that field on the client. So it builds a little piece of JavaScript that does basically saying upload that, or update that field with that value. And then it sends that JavaScript back to the front end, which then executes and then does the update. So this is just sort of a shorthand kind of scenario. I could have actually built that JavaScript myself here, but why? Why not let Alpha do it for me, where you just say e_dot_set, the field name, dot value equal this. Now, one thing, and it's kind of cool, you can also set not only the value, but also color and other things like that using the same technique. And there's some really neat things you can do with that to make life easier. So that's how you would essentially create some kind of confirmation methodology to the user. This is a very rudimentary one. You may want to actually show them what's in that bucket, or a data table, what's been added to the data table, and that may be a little bit more effective in terms of, because often what they'll want to do is then let me select one of the items I just uploaded and email it or do something with it. Again, that's where the user interface such as a list control will really make life easier for you there. So, okay.
Cool.
We lost our leader.
Oh, I'm back.
Oh, yay! Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I've got another question. We had talked before about CloudBerry, I believe, and someone had said that they're using CloudBerry Drive, which lets them treat the S3 bucket like a local drive, which is kind of a cool feature. So that means, so they said, now, are there any other ways to get the size and date and time from files? And again, there is documentation for that. If you go into documentation, you look for, I think it's called directory functions or file functions or file and directory functions. If it treats it like a drive, you should be able to iterate through it and pick out the sizes and file names and so on from modification dates.
They've renamed their name to something extremely generic, which God knows what.
MSP 360.
I can never
Isn't
forget
it like a food additive or something?
No, I think it's an IBM mainframe system that they bought or something like that.
Gotcha.
The 360 series. It was very powerful. Anyway,
CloudBerry's a great name.
Yeah, I loved it. And it's easy to remember. You like, something Berry. Oh, CloudBerry, because it's up on the cloud. Anyway, they have a series of different products. The one, where is it? Jeez Louise, something like that. I can't click on it. Let's go right here. So they've got different solutions here, but the one I use is the CloudBerry. But as he said, there's a CloudBerry drive, which is kind of cool, where you install it and then you hook it up to S3 and it literally looks like something on your hard drive. And so that's pretty neat stuff. And you can actually save, drag files right into there on your local machine, and they get uploaded to S3 and all those. It just looks like another folder, like Dropbox kind of thing.
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds similar to Dropbox. Yep.
Pretty cool there. And I have a couple clients, that are doing that. They do this for their website because obviously they don't want everybody downloading and installing it. Plus there's a fee for that. But for other things, they just find it's really easy, especially like if they're managing static data, like a set of manuals that need to be up on S3 that are going to be downloaded for people. It's just easy to do things that way. So pretty fun stuff.
So when we use the API to send files up to S3, the question is, can we create a link or hand a link back to the user so that they can download and view that file?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. So the important thing when you upload it here is this target name, because that gives the target name. Now, let me go ahead and let's see if we can, hold on a second. Let me get my CloudBerry stuff running. So bear with me. I'll get that organized. Where's my CloudBerry? Do I have it on? I thought I had it on this system. Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So I got to find out where I put these files up there. I think it was in our training bucket. Let's see, I might remember it. Okay. I'm trying to find where I put that. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So I'm up on CloudBerry here, and this is the files I've been uploading, like that EMC background stuff. And I can click here and say web URL. And this gives me the web URL. Now, this is the name of the object. In this case, everything's at the root. But if things are at a lower level, and I have a movie here, and I look at the web URL, basically it just makes that folder just part of the URL. So the trick is, in Amazon S3, everything is at a single level. They just put a different name on stuff when it gets uploaded, so it creates virtual, essentially, folders. So the important thing is, whenever I upload it to this bucket, this is always going to be the bucket address here. So what I can do is, let's go ahead and copy this here, because remember, I'm at the top level here. So now let's go back in here, and I'm going to say results is equal results, but file name plus that, plus I think it's carriage free 92 plus. Let's see, we'll just give that a try. Let's give this a try and see if it works. So what I want to do is actually show the URL. So I'll go ahead and grab something, upload it here. That's a little faster. Okay, so, oh, and I've got it backwards. So this should actually be a right slash. So that's carriage. Oh yeah, that's for a disk drive. Let's see. Oh, here's a cool feature.
I think forward slash is allowed in your, yeah, it is, forward slash is allowed. So you can just put it right in the quotation.
Oh, okay.
No CHR
oh,
required.
This one's okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because
the other one.
The other one, you're going forward slash.
Yeah, because otherwise it's an escape character.
It's the back one that's the escape one, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So let's give that a try. I'll pick the small one so it goes fast.
Yep.
Okay, so here's my item here. So I can literally copy that, and that is the URL. And again, you have to have the right permissions on your S3 bucket.
Mhm.
That's the URL to get that. So you can embed that in an email. You could, give, they can click on it. You can set the value of a link to there. It's really, really nice. I mean, that's the cool thing about S3 is once it's up on S3, it's pretty easy, to give it to people and to share it. Plus, when someone hits it, they're not hitting your server. They're going to go up and hit S3 server, and so therefore you're not going to have, if you're doing a lot of file intensive stuff, you'll take all that load off of your Alpha application server, file server environment, and put it on S3, which has got massive pipes. I mean, they're just built to like serve up stuff really quick. So you see really good performance there. So again, you just need to find out what's your bucket URL, then you can append it, and then this is literally the address that you would take. In fact, let me go ahead and show that. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh this, and I think is it on this one? Yeah, right there it is. So I'll get the web URL, copy it, go into my browser. There it is. So really easy, pretty straightforward, and you'll see that's the S3 bucket that we're using there. Yeah, it worked great.
I don't know why I'm surprised. Of course it worked.
I know. Telling Selwyn that you doubted his capabilities.
Well, we've taken a lot of questions here on this, and I think there was something else you wanted to cover. Is that correct?
Let's see, how's our timing on this? Oh, good. Yeah, plenty of time. Okay, this should go pretty quickly. So the question that came in from our loyal readers in Fort Lee, New Jersey is the fact that, let's go to UXs. Let's say I had two UXs, a parent and a child, and I want to talk between them, meaning like my parent is my parent record, and then I want to launch a child UX to create a new child record, but I want to make sure it's linked to that parent. Now, if you're using grids and things like that, we can use things like linked grids and row expander that automatically creates that relationship and handles it for you. It's pretty straightforward, but we can mimic it here. So I'm going to create a new UX very quickly here. And this will only take a moment here. So I'm creating a new UX. We'll go ahead and put a panel card in, 2 panel cards in here. We'll do panel layout and panel card 1 and panel card 2. And I'm going to put in a piece of text box here called parent ID. And we will create also a button. I'll say launch child UX. So what I want to be able to do is I'm going to put in a parent ID. That would maybe this is a data bound control. It's been loaded up from that data bound control, etc. And what I want to do is when I click this, I want to launch into my other panel card here another UX and pass that information to that UX. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and save this as parent one UX. Okay. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to create a new UX here. I'm going to make this very simple so we don't have to spend much time on it. And I'm just going to add a control in here, which is going to be the parent ID. And so I've just got a little control on right here, parent ID. And I'll go ahead and call this child1 underscore UX. So what I want to do, and I'm going to launch it, I'm going to click this button. It's going to launch that UX in this panel card, but it doesn't have to be. It could be in a tab pane. It could be anywhere. It's just we're basically going from one UX to another and want to pass information. Now the magic or the trick to it is in my child UX, I want to go to properties. And in properties, I want to search for arguments because arguments are really powerful, very cool. So I'm going to go into arguments and I'm going to create a new argument and I'm going to call that parent ID and I'm going to actually give it a type of numeric. Okay. And I'm going to leave it here to say set value of runtime. You may have used arguments before because you can actually set it to a variable and then set it to say a session variable. You can give it to a session variable or a page variable or a cookie. So therefore you read it from that information there. But in our case, we just want to say get the set the value at runtime. So what an argument is think of it as just a variable that is at the UX level. So it's part of the UX. So now the UX has this thing, a property or a variable called parent ID. So I've got that there. So that's step one is I actually put a argument on my UX because I want to pass that information to the UX and I'm going to use the argument as the method to do that. So now I'm going to go to my parent UX and I want to go to this button right here. This button is going to do two things. One is it's going to launch the UX, that child one, into this panel card, but at the same time, I'm going to pass the value of this parent ID to that UX so it can then use it for whatever purposes it wants to, hopefully not nefarious. So I'm going to go into here button on this I'm going to double click on this button here. I'm going to add a new action and I'm going to open a UX component. And so this brings up my UX component opener and I'm going to go ahead and click here, select the one. So I'm putting in there my child one UX. And you notice something when I selected it, it says, oh, hey, guess what? This UX has parent or has arguments. So if you want to pass something into it, it will take it from you. So I can go in here, I'll click on here and I could just set this to a fixed value. But the more important thing I can do, which is really fun, is I can just select a field on my user interface and say, when you launch this UX, pass it in the value of the current field in this field to that argument. And you notice it's just using the curly bracket metaphor there. Now, once I've done that, I'm going to then make it go into a panel and panel card number 2. Okay. So now what's going to happen is when I click this button, it's going to tell it to load up that UX, but at the same time, it's going to pass the current value of parent ID into it. Now we need to do one other thing because I'll go ahead and show you it operating right now. Let's go ahead and just do that real quick to make sure we're in set. Okay. So I'm going to type in parent there and I'm going to load this and you're going to see in a moment that, wait a minute, well, we passed the argument, but this field's empty. And so what we need to do now, so underneath, it actually did pass the argument. We go into the child UX and then we go into the server side. And in here, I can go dim parent ID as in, and I can go parent ID is equal to, and then there's if I look over here, and it's kind of a little bit over here, there's this thing called e-arguments where I can get the value of that argument that's been passed in. So I'm going to grab this right here, go back here, and I'm going to put that there. Okay, and I'll explain this. So it looks a little strange, but basically what it does is it says find the argument called parent ID and give me that argument's data. And then I'm putting it into a variable here. Now that I have that there, I can go e.control, and notice this is different, but parent ID is equal to parent ID. So instead of e_set, which is when you're doing an Xbasic callback, that's how that works. But when you're in the onDialog initialize, you just say e.control. The name of the field is equal to any value you want it. So now I can go in, save this, go back to my parent. Let's do a working preview. I'll go ahead and type 99 here, or 88. Click here, and you'll see, now that field has the value 88. Now, in this case, I'm just setting the value of field, but I could do many other things. There's a lot of, like, I could go set up, drop-down boxes or do a whole lot of things here. But the principle I want to get across is that when you build a UX, you can create arguments on the UX, and one or many, as many as you want. And now, whenever you launch that UX, you can pass information into that. And therefore, when that UX launches, you can say, oh, okay, give me the information that has been passed in and then take action. In this case, I'm just setting the value of a text box. But it could be like, show this panel card versus this panel card. I mean, the sky's the limit. And so this is really powerful because you're basically doing inter-component communications in a very structured way, which then is very safe. You'll notice we define the data type of the argument so that, when it gets into where it's been passed, it knows what kind of data it's expecting, and you can handle it from that standpoint there. So again, this came in from someone who was doing a parent-child relationship. They had a parent record. They wanted to open up a new UX to enter a new record, but make sure that new record has a foreign key relationship to the parent. So in this case, they just pass in the parent ID, set the value so when they create that new record in the child table, it actually inserts that parent ID into the appropriate column, and boom, you have referential integrity and the pieces work together, and it's pretty nice there. And again, that's just one form factor or one use case. There's many other ways you can use this kind of capability by passing in arguments. Now, one other really super important thing, this is super critical, and one of the other reasons I wanted to show you this is that people have used session variables to pass stuff between UXs. Because what I could do is I could set a session variable and then launch this UX. And then in my child, in the server side, I can go in here and say parent ID is equal to session.parent ID. Now that works, and I've done that before, but the danger is this, is that if you have a situation where someone's using multiple browser tabs and you are kind of working on a couple of them at the same time, then you may get a situation where you set a session ID and then it gets reused in another UX that's using the same session ID or session number or session variable, and it could screw things up. Whereas in this method, once the UX has passed that argument in, then that's bound to this UX. So let's say tomorrow or like in an hour, I've got this child UX and I'm updating it, I'm doing everything, I'm using that parent ID, but then I launch this again into a different tab on the browser. The next time it launches, it's going to take whatever the current parent ID and it's going to be sticky, meaning that new UX is going to use the new parent ID. The old one's going to continue using the parent ID it got when it launched. So if you're, and more people are doing multiple tab kind of applications where I've got, instead of using like a tabbed UI, you can actually just open up a series of tab windows in your browser. Each one of those has a record that the person's working on. Well, session variables start to become very problematic because one of your UXs may change a session variable and another UX, which you didn't anticipate, could use that session variable, and in the meantime, it's been changed, whereas arguments is a much more effective way to kind of manage that data as it goes through. And with that, questions that anybody might have.
I don't see any questions here, other than someone pointed out you spelled launch wrong on the button.
What? Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. All right. Maybe I should wait. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to respell it. Lunch.
Lunch child.
Yes,
I
that's the
thought you were
lunch
going to go
child
with
UX.
latchkey child, but
I'm ready to
lunch child too.
consume that child UX. Great. Hey,
Excellent.
thanks for sharing, pal.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions, or even
Or
comments?
even, yeah.
Yeah. I don't
I bored him to death.
see
I think this one is so arcane and
any. I
so,
think you got, yeah, I think you got
yeah.
them. Oh, okay. Here's actually a quick one. Really, this has more to do with JSON data, and it goes back to your previous example
Uh-huh.
of when you're reading in, I guess, from S3, the names of the files, you're
Oh,
doing a
yeah.
parse. So the question is, okay, that's fine. You built an array into that p variable, but what if there are like subcategories under that, or is there like a sub array? How do you get to that? How does
Oh,
that
yeah,
work?
that's pretty cool.
Yes, because JSON data can be hierarchical.
Exactly. Let's see. Do I have some good JSON? Basically, what it will do is the neat thing about pointer variables is they can be
They can have arrays of arrays too.
multi-level,
Yeah.
and that's what makes them super powerful, especially when and that's where the world is really going on there. So let's go ahead and do the, oh, I don't want to actually spend time coding. Oh, you know what? I know how we'll do it. Let's go to the tools, template tester window. So I'm going to tools, template tester window. And this is where you can do JSON templating, which is a lot of fun and really cool stuff, for like using view boxes and stuff. One thing that's cool is if I click here and I load an example, I can find
There's
a
a nested
nested
array.
array
And
of
so there's a
objects.
nested array of objects and a nested array of values. Could
Oh,
you?
yeah.
Okay. Those are the two options.
Yep. So you'll see here that we have employees, and then each employee has a sub element of skills. And so you'll notice we have top level is employees. So let me go ahead and grab all of this. So we'll copy that. Let me go back here and create a new Xbasic here. I'm going to go dim JSON as C. JSON is equal to, where's JSON? Okay. Now I'm going to go dim P as pointer, and I'll go P is equal to JSON parse JSON. And I'll say, show var P, but I'm actually going to stop it here and look at it in the debugger so we can actually look at this. Okay. So basically I'm just grabbing that multi-level JSON and I'm converting it into a pointer. Oh, pointer as P, and I'll just go pointer. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we've got to this point here where we had our JSON and we got it converted, so I'll go to a pointer. So now let's look at our pointer. You'll see that, it's pulled out those top level employees, Fred Smith, there. But you'll notice that under there, you have another level, which are skills. So basically it creates a multi-level pointer where you have the top levels pointer, then you have an array of employees, and then you also have an array of skills. And so you can see they're numeric 1, 2, 3. So if I go 2, you'll see that's the another one there. So it takes care of it. And so now this is much easier to manipulate because basically you can, say for each employee, then go grab the skills for each skill, do this kind of thing there. So the neat thing about it is that the JSON parse will take JSON, however complicated it is, and turn it into a multi-level pointer, which then you can inspect and then, create little for loops to be able to pull the data out of it from there. And vice versa, I can actually take a multi-level pointer and say generate JSON and it'll generate this for me. And this is super important, not only just, when you really start seeing this is in REST APIs, because everything kind of gets tossed around as JSON going between REST APIs. So this allows you to create JSON to send someone through a REST API. And conversely, when someone sends you some JSON data, you can extract it and be able to then act upon it in a programmatic fashion.
Very cool. One general question I got has to do with Python. We had talked a little bit about Python and Alpha Anywhere kind of coming together. Do you know anything about that at this point?
No
Or is it
updates
still
yet. I know that a lot of
yeah,
enhancements for Node has been added to it. There's some other
yeah,
little things around there. So it's in the development sort of loop, is to be able to offer both JSON, I'm sorry, Node.js and Python to do server-side stuff.
mhm,
You can do Node right now, actually. Sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, that's it. Sorry, I was just agreeing.
Yeah, no, so it's on the roadmap. It's just certain other things kind of took precedent, so it's still in there, and that'll be really neat because there's a lot of really cool, pre-made modules for Python. It's actually now, I think, the #1 programming language, if I'm not mistaken. At the
That's
very
cool.
least, it's the fastest growing, but it should be taking over JavaScript pretty soon.
Yeah,
Mainly, what's interesting is that on the Python side, it's not necessarily just programmers, but there's a lot of data scientists and
right.
just
So
scientists in general. It's
big
becoming.
data and AI apparently are huge into this.
Yeah, AI is
Yeah,
really big too. And then also, which one I like have fun with is circuit Python. So for people who are using these little like Arduino boards and other
and
things like that,
Raspberry Pi and yeah,
exactly, it's becoming sort of the dominant language to write there because it's so approachable, and people who just don't know programming, it's just an easy language to learn. So pretty excited about there. There's a lot of resources for it. Um, so soon we'll have Alpha Anywhere running on an Arduino board.
that would be a neat trick.
That would be cool.
I've often asked about that, about those small
Yeah.
processors, but the ARM architecture doesn't support the .NET framework, which is the reason we can't yet do that.
I
So
know, not
maybe
yet.
someday, not yet,
I know.
exactly. Never say
So
never.
you're saying there's a chance.
So I'm saying there's a chance.
I really got to give
Wonderful.
up smoking. It's really gotten bad.
Hey, Dion, thanks very much for
Hey, thank
presenting
you.
today's
Great
narrative.
questions,
Thank you for
everybody.
standing by, and thank you everyone who asked questions and showed up today. If you do have future questions, go ahead and type them or go ahead and email them into guides@alphasoftware.com. And we hope to see you at next Wednesday's webinar. So take care and have a great week. Bye-bye.